it's not disability, it's accessibility. That's like the issue. We became partners with the Ehlers-Danlos Society because they were just such a huge fan of the film, especially Carey's performance in it. They really reacted to it, and we found that they were the right partner in how they felt about the movie.
We're back with another episode of Convos and Cameos. I'm flying solo today, but I've got a pair of guests here, and it is awesome to bring back a familiar face and an incredible actor in the same conversation. The convo today is about the new film, Where Did the Adults Go? A pressure cooker of a drama where siblings try to hash out their differences on the anniversary of their parents' passing. In the partnership with the Ehlers-Danlos Society, the film will hold a limited online release on October 9th to highlight the importance of authentic representation led by actors within the disability community. And the cameos today are the star of Where Did the Adults Go, Carey Cox, and writer and director of the film, Courtney Marsh. Carey and Courtney, welcome to the conversation, and welcome to Convos and Cameos.
Thanks
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
One thing that I have to keep in mind not to do is accidentally say Courtney Cox, because
it's catchy.
If we got married.
Yes, it would be great.
You're assuming I take your last name, but you'd be absolutely correct.
We were joking so much. I just had a baby 6 months ago, and I was going to theoretically name the baby after Courtney and Jerry Franck combined to Courtney. Courtney was the working name for a while, but
that's
Milo.
But that's kind of a cool name. Milo's nice too.
Milo might have a little bit more of a twang to it.
That is true. That's true. Well, in full transparency, before we jump into the conversation, I want to share that we had arranged this conversation last week, but due to unfortunate human error on my part, the whole conversation happened off the record. So I only mention that because if we happen to reference a conversation that you have not seen yet, that's what happened. So, but what I did learn in that conversation is that Courtney and Carey are wonderful to talk to, and I am so confident you guys are going to enjoy this conversation because we've done it, and I can attest to this being a really awesome pair to talk with.
Yeah. We just wanted to do it again.
I did. I think that's what happened. I think I was just so eager to chat with you guys again.
It happens all the time, really. A frequent podcast listener. How many times I hear people say that? This is taking over too.
Well, I do, on the record, want to thank you guys for your flexibility and understanding there. But let's jump into it. Courtney, you and I had the chance to meet at the Seattle International Film Festival about 2.5 years ago, where I talked with you and Jerry about the documentary Bottled Conditioned, which was such a fun conversation. And so something that I was thinking about, because you told me about how you were in the process of, you were well into production for Where the Adults Go at that point. And I was kind of wondering, was there any influence or anything any cross-pollination between your work on producing Bottled Condition and your work writing and directing Where Did the Adults Go?
I mean, that's a very good question. And I wish I had a slightly more interesting answer, but I think because we were in the throes of releasing that, when you release a film, it's always kind of its own experience. I think you have your own expectations, and then reality merges with that. And then I was in the editing process at the time. I think, in a way, it's nice to be in two different stages of films, at the same time. It's hard when you're in development with a bunch of things. I think it uses one part of your brain, exhausts one part of you. So I don't know if I think it less of a cross-pollination, but maybe more of it allowed me to enjoy something different than the struggle. Cause the editing, there's so much effort that goes into it. There's so much decision making. And then when your film is out and released and people are enjoying it, hopefully, then you can kind of relax. So I think that time in Seattle with Bottle Conditioned, or just in general releasing it, was almost its own. It was like almost a breath of fresh air from where we were in the post-production process of this. So I don't know if they cross-pollinated. I'm sure subconsciously they always do. But from what I recall, I just remember enjoying that I was at two different stages versus editing like two different films where you're just kind of, here and there, and you just that decision exhaustion.
Hmm. Well, I shared with you before. It was wonderful getting to talk with you at that point, and I had no idea. I was entirely unaware that you were like really deep into the weeds with editing on this one, and probably incredibly stressed. But you had a chance to get away and go to Seattle.
Yes, yes, and drank
And
alcohol.
yes, 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 good old lambic beer. I love it. I highly recommend everyone check out Bottle Conditioned. It's such a really awesome educational opportunity for a type of beer that I just had never known about, and now, yeah, really really interested in and really enjoyed drinking. So, Bottle Conditioned, go check that out. Um, Carey, so you play Cynthia in the film. I want to talk a little bit more about your first impressions reading this script and your initial thoughts about this character when you read it and decided that you wanted to audition for this.
Yeah. Well, my first time reading the script was really refreshing and really different from a lot of the things that I'm typically asked to audition for. Um, I My disability journey started. I was born with my disability, but it didn't start affecting me until about 12, 13 years ago, really. And I began my career as just, I guess, a straightforward actor or a non-disabled actor, typically doing theater. And I worked at a little rep company, an awesome repertory theater company, Filmmakers Repertory Company, when I was in grad school for acting, and got to do this really wide range of roles and got to play a lot of different kinds of characters with different styles of things. And in my journey of needing to identify as a disabled actor, which really came about because of necessity and because I wasn't getting auditions for mainstream roles, or when I would walk into the room, people would start to notice that I walked differently, and they would ask me about it, and then it would become clear that my physical presentation didn't match their idea for the role. And then luckily I found this wonderful community that I kind of shamefully had been totally ignorant about, or partway ignorant about. I knew some disabled actors, but didn't realize how many there were and what a movement disabled inclusion had been for such a long time. I mean, decades and decades. And so I found this wonderful community who were creating great work and who were trained and ready to take on any kind of role. And then luckily started being considered again for roles. And I had the kind of relief of, oh, now when I'm being seen for something, I don't have to hide my disability, and I don't have to try and fit into something that someone isn't looking for. They're potentially looking for me. But one thing that is a hang up is still the material that we're given. And I always want to make sure that I express that I'm very grateful that there are people who write for disabled actors, that they intend to include us and intend to tell our stories. Within that, a lot of stereotypes still exist, and a lot of stories tend to kind of go the same way and tend to show one-dimensional versions of disability, or they tend to be meant to be inspiring, or they're written to fulfill something in a plot that isn't really focused on authenticity or creating a complete human being. We often feel like we're plot devices, and et cetera, et cetera. But reading this script, it was very clear that this script wasn't doing that Cynthia is a complete human being, that she, even reading the character breakdown, didn't read like typical character breakdowns that we tend to get. She wasn't intended to be inspiring. Instead, she was frustrated with that narrative. So there were a lot of things that matched how I was starting to feel about disability representation. A lot of her frustration matched mine, but then at the same time, she was a very different person than me. To the way that she talked and her confidence and her upbringing, all of these things were so different from myself. So they were something that I could dig into. And I immediately wanted to play this role because I would relish the opportunity to do research. And I love when I can get a role that makes me think, oh, I want to read a lot of books and I want to learn about this different way of life, or I want to figure out what this person's about and all of the ways that we intersect, but then all of the parts of myself that I can explore that I don't usually get to explore. And the fact that she is so confident, so driven, and then has this deep insecurity, but that is covered by this confidence, that she was raised in this way where there's a certain spotlight put on her and a certain credit given to her, was very different from a lot of times my husband Joe, who's also a disabled actor. We joke a lot about the disabled person staring out the window because there are lots of tropes that we find, and that's one recurring thing. It seems really silly, and no offense if you're writing something right now for disabled people and you include a disabled person staring out the window, just know that this is something that comes up a lot. There'll be the person in the wheelchair literally looking out the window at the world outside that they don't get to be included in. But Cynthia was raised doing speeches and being kind of put forward and by her family, and it was just different. And it was clear that there was thought and research put into it, and that the choices were made about her character and her disability that were specific to the story, and that were specific to the dynamics with the other characters. So that's a lot to say, that it was very different and it stood out. And I still use it as an example when talking to people of what representation should be.
Yeah, let's hold on you for just a moment there, because I would like to know. I imagine that as a disabled actor, getting into the industry or being a part of the industry can be intimidating. What would be your advice to an aspiring actor who happens to have a disability? What would you say to them?
There are so many things. The first thing is very hard, and I'm privileged because I went to school as a non-disabled actor. I first went to undergrad. I studied musical theater. I was attempting to dance. I was never a good dancer, but I was attempting to. And then when I went and got my master's in acting, I was still outwardly a non-disabled actor. My professors and the company knew that I was dealing with a new diagnosis and starting to struggle. So they knew privately, but and that would come up as kind of a problem in certain rehearsals for projects that were really physical. But I wasn't in a box yet. So I was able to get my training, and from there I was able to get my equity card. Back then it used to be harder to get your equity card. I know that it's a little bit different now, but that was the biggest hurdle for other actors I knew, was this catch-22 of you need to be in the union to work union shows, but you need to work union shows to be able to get in the union. And this is just the theater union. And so it would be hard to even be seen for certain theaters. You couldn't get an audition unless you were in the union, but that was kind of a shortcut getting to go to school. And then it also made me competitive with mainstream actors. And sometimes I think people in the disability community, we see something a lot in breakdowns that say disabled actors encouraged to apply for disabled roles. And then we also see something that says no experience necessary. And that also kind of drives us crazy, because so many of us have lots of experience and have training. And so why would the expectations for our community be lower than for other communities? But one of the reasons is there's this barrier to entry to traditional training for disabled actors. That's starting to change. There are now a lot more actors who have gotten into grad school, if that's the route that you want to take. So it is getting a little better, but a lot of times the spaces themselves, the actual theaters, the actual classrooms aren't physically accessible to people, or movement-based training doesn't know how to work with actors with physical disabilities. And then neurodivergent people have their own barriers when it comes to traditional training. So I'd say get training in whatever way that looks like, whatever way you can cobble together training. If it's taking workshops, if it's finding an actor who you know of who you can shadow and do personal training with, whatever you can, read books on acting, practice with your friends, get together and do play readings, whatever it is, so that when you do show up and when you do get the opportunity, finally you stick in people's memories and they can't discount you and they know that you're somebody to look at. That would be the first thing. The other thing is look for the people who are looking for you. Do the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. That's an excellent opportunity run by Nick Novicki. It's fabulous. There are disabled programs geared towards disabled actors. The Queen's Theatre does a Theatre for All training program for disabled actors every year. Look for representation. Who's looking for you? There are people who will help you, and there's a community there. So find them, but mostly make sure that you know your stuff and that you can show up and be confident and make an impression.
Yeah, great insight. Great insight. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Courtney, let's talk a little bit about the development of Where Did the Adults Go? I haven't said it yet because I told you I layered my praise for this movie on you guys profusely last time, but I suppose I should mention I really, really enjoyed this movie. I had a great time with the conversations and the, kind of the debates and the discussions that happen in this movie, and just how everything is written and the pressure cooker, as I mentioned, that this movie can be, from conversation to conversation, is so alluring to me. This is what I look for, particularly in indie film. I am a big fan of this, so thank you for that. But let's talk about the development of this story and putting it together, and of course translating your script to screen.
Yeah, the development was quite quick. Also, just like Carey, I was just like, I didn't say anything. There's so many interesting things that you said that I feel like we talk a lot, or I know like a decent amount, but it's like always when you tell me like sometimes like breakdowns, I don't know, it's just, sorry, it's like flabbergasted. I just have to like say, like, I'm like,
No, thank you.
wild. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I wonder what, I forgot we had a breakdown for the character. Anyway, sorry, Todd. It's all just like, it's years, so you forget. But anyway, the development for this was quite, I would say, was rather quick. I'm not gonna lie, like this movie came together fast. So basically, try to make this not too long-winded, but after the Oscar nomination, it opened like a lot of doors for me. But like I kept, because what I wanted, my Oscar doc, I would consider like an inspiring story, and it hence has disability in it. And when I would get these agents and managers, everyone like wanted me to fit the narrative of like, okay, well, you're next, if you're going to do narrative, it should kind of be in this vein. But I was like writing horror and sci-fi and all the things I wanted, had been doing in shorts and stuff. I mean, the documentary was almost like a happy accident that I stumbled upon. And of course, it's like an amazing opportunity, and I'm so happy I did it. And I love the film, and I'm close with the main subject and all that. But this is to say that I couldn't get a movie off the ground. Like I couldn't get a show, I couldn't get anything. And it was this catch-22, different, but it's an industry of catch-22s of, hey, for you to be taken seriously, you need to do a feature, but you can't do a feature unless you've already done a feature. And I was like, well, here's a script. There was always just something. And it coming off such a big high, where you're like, here go the doors, they're open for me. Like here I'm in a cruise now, it was like, it was tough, like that, just the rejection after rejection, or this, you can't do this, you have to do this, or, oh, do the narrative film of my documentary. I was like, absolutely not going to do that. It's not the kind of filmmaker, I am narratively. This is all to say, I kept writing, and it was like no's, and to the point where I was like, you know what, then like if this isn't going to work. I'm going to write for a budget I think I can get. So my producer, Jerry, and I basically at the beginning of 2022 said, no matter what, we're making a feature this year. I wrote a few things. We budgeted them out. We got them budgeted. I couldn't back them into a budget that I could afford, like that I could raise the money for. I couldn't do it right with any less. So we were like, well, how much can we get? We got the number. I was like, okay, well, what? And we started listening to like a lot of Mark Duplass South by Southwest keynote speeches, which was like, the cavalry isn't coming. You just have to kind of do it on your own. And so we were like, screw it, let's do it on our own. Okay, one location, max 5 characters, and we can do it for this amount of money in 10 days. Okay. Well, I went through a bunch of log lines and I'm like, what could I do in this location for that? And I had this one log line and it was 3 siblings argue over like a property after their parents passed, and it's told from 3 different perspectives. At the time, and with a larger budget, it was supposed to be told from like past, present, and future. Like each person's perspective is from a different time frame. But obviously fitting it into this and to the budget, it became simply from 3 points of view, essentially. And so anyway, I just started writing. Started writing in August. And at the time I also had shattered my arm. So I couldn't do anything else, by the way. Like it was just kind of like, I was just out of surgery. So it was like really just a low point for me. So I started writing this movie, and it came quite quickly. Like, maybe because it's slightly based off of like, it's inspired by my own life, but also one of our executive producers' stories. It was like a merge. And I just knew the characters. So anyway, started writing. I think the script came together in like, I'm not even joking, like a month. And that's not to like brag. It's more like we needed to do it if we were going to shoot it in December. And then that's kind of how it came about. And we went through maybe 2 rewrites, and then we started looking at cast. And but that was, the short of it is we knew how much we had, we knew a location we could access, and I wrote for under 5 characters, something I could shoot in 10 days. And the reason I did it in one location, one was for money, but that we could have full 12-hour days there and walk away. You don't need to spend time traveling or packing up or setting up. We came to the same like location every day, aside from there's one other location in the movie. So so it was kind of like, that was how it went. The development was quite quick, and we just like hit the ground running. December was a good time too, because most people weren't working or were looking for work, because it's like right before the holidays. So anyway, that's how it came together. And we found ourselves on set in December.
Yeah, very cool. As you were talking about that low point with your shattered arm, there's some times where I wish I was kind of out of commission so that I can just focus on one thing. So, it could be a blessing in disguise sometimes.
I think it was like, there's like this thing I was reading, and it's like it's not a wall, it's just like a turning point. Like when you go through these, like, I don't know, I found like most of the harder times in my life have been probably like the predecessor of something really great. So I didn't have an option. I like to surf. That's like, it's a hobby. It's just good, clears my head. I couldn't do that for 3 months, so it was just a really like time to buckle. What can you do? I can walk and I can write, but I couldn't do this, athletics. I was like, that I would usually be tempted to do. Not that it's a bad thing, just, it made me focus.
Yeah, that's it's unfortunate that, that happens, and, you're kind of limited, but like I said, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
But you've been talking about how you wrote this from one location, and the one location in this movie is gorgeous. It's a lovely house, and we talked about it before, and I really want to get it on the record about working in this house. This location that you locked down for this story, and just the house as a character in this movie.
Yeah, so the house was a like a family connection, basically. It's large. It wasn't really lived in, which lent to this kind of cold atmosphere. But the house is built on the side of a cliff, and there's an elevator running through it, a glass elevator, that Carey probably spent more time in at this point than me. But basically, it's just like 5 levels on the side of a cliff in Del Mar. And it was, the people weren't living there at the time. It's like a vacation home. And so we had access to it. And it was very nerve wracking, like shooting there, because it's a favor. And so, you're very concerned about the walls, and there's like they're white walls or like beige walls and brand new hardwood floors. And you have crews in there. And like, listen, I was a crew member, I know what it's like. You always hear people say, I would never let anyone shoot in my home. Like, I didn't say that to the people. But there was definitely that added layer of pressure because it's personal. I think versus when you don't know the people and you have a location manager and you're like, eh. I was there like the day after we wrapped with like what are those? They're like little erasers for walls. They're like, and I was just like scrubbing, like,
Yeah, the little magic erasers.
yes,
Yeah.
magic erasers. Oh, what a magical tool. Like,
Right.
Real.
so anyway, it was, but it was great to shoot there because I think it added to the sense of the crew feeling very like a family, the casting crew feeling very like a family. Like we would, the espresso machine was a prop for Carey, but it was also sometimes how we would drink caffeine if we wanted to feel a little fancy. We didn't want to go to craft service. And then, and I'm sure Carey can speak more to this, is like the Carey and the other two actors or three actors, they'd have their own rooms to stay in. They would have different rooms in the house. So we didn't need trailers or anything like that. So it was great in many ways. And I think the only thing I'll add that I recall maybe mentioning last time was it's just a massive home. Like it's a multi-million-dollar home. And I chose the home. Like I could have shot in a smaller home. I had friends who might be willing to lend me, but I thought it would add so much production value to a small film because the film could never afford. Probably shooting in that location would have been the budget of my movie. So anyway, but now I find it funny because sometimes that wealth level can be harder for an audience member to identify with because it's so, of a certain level. And that's not me making that up or pushing a judgment. It's just like feedback that I've heard. But I love how big and cold it is as a home. I've always enjoyed that because homes tend to want to be like cozy, even if it's a summer home, right? But it's so cold, even though it's like this beautiful location. To me, it always felt very empty and so separated. Like, how could Cynthia's room on the bottom floor? How could she ever talk to one of the brothers or yell to them even, hey, like dinner's ready. You can't yell up 5 floors. You'd almost have to text or call. So it's like the separation I really enjoyed. And I think that separation in wealth, like everyone's, money can be an amazing thing. Well, it can also be a heavily separating thing and a divisive, I wanted to use it, I guess, as like a cold divisive tool.
Yeah, and I think it comes across so well because there is something to, a house having like this much space and just this much like area, I guess, high ceilings and just like big rooms. And it even when a lot of these conversations are happening in close proximity with each other, it feels like a small thing happening in a really big space, right?
Yeah.
And so that I think that totally comes across here. And I yeah, I would love to visit and live in a home like that, but I think the effect that you're trying to give here absolutely works with that I don't know, dichotomy maybe of these close conversations that have to happen either one-on-one or with this small group in these massive spaces. Carey, I want your perspective on working in this home and kind of, I don't know, like living here to do this project.
Gosh, it was amazing in many ways, and my mind is kind of blown right now and reeling with the way that Courtney just described and the coldness of the house and the connection to wealth and how wealth can be divisive, because we were playing with that idea so much in working together, and it's whereas there might be criticism that people can't relate to a wealthy family on the surface, the idea of a wealthy family, I think in this country, to just kind of speak loosely, we can all relate to this American idea of money might be right around the corner, or maybe I'll make it big, or maybe I'll win the lottery. It's kind of a myth that's told to so many people, and without saying too much, an issue that politically, I think that this idea that people could enter the realm of the ruling class, or the people who have the power, that something could just happen one day and then suddenly I'm with you on the yacht, it is something that is deeply divisive, and creates the instinct to hoard and protect, and both the idea that wealth could just be right around the corner, or the idea that if I were to attain it, it's so difficult to attain that it's something that I need to guard with my life, and the idea of that happening within a family is, I think, something that people don't have to use their imagination too much to understand, in terms of narratives that we're interested in this country. So just to like spin off of that, I think there is something very relatable within that to audiences, particularly because these characters are we've got a college kid, we've got a guy who's aspiring in business and maybe not doing so well, and we have somebody whose book isn't doing great. None of them are achieving what their parents were able to achieve, and none of them are able to do that pull yourself up by your bootstrap thing, that they have this inheritance to lean on and to fight over, and the shame and insecurity wrapped up in that, I think, is something also that people can relate to, definitely in my generation. But anyway, that's a separate thing, but kind of related to the coldness of the house.
I think that those are very fascinating points to bring up about the plot of this movie and kind of the character development here. You make some really interesting points about not having that success, or maybe not living up to what people expect you to. I feel like when I meet people, or when I'm like reacquainting with people, I have to bring my successes to the conversation, right? And there's a lot of things that makes this movie uncomfortable with the conversations that these kids are having, but one of those things is my book isn't doing so well, and that's what she has to bring to this reunion, and also this this request, this really big request that says she's not in the best place in life right now. So like, yeah, and that's uncomfortable. It really is. And it just kind of contributes to the conflicts that happen here, and kind of that discomfort that we all have to kind of work through.
Definitely. Working in that house was very cool, because like Courtney said, we couldn't detach from it, and we did get to feel kind of like the characters living there the whole time, and we were always aware of the other scenes being shot, and it was very immersive. Just to touch back on that, on what it was like to be in the house, it was a very cool experience, and also just gorgeous, and like a retreat, like a creative retreat all the time. It was very, very cool.
And I was gonna say something that Carey said that just goes back to the Thomas, maybe what you said about the house, was like, I never thought of it that way. But from what Carey was saying, I think touches on a good point of like, also the vastness of the house is a reminder of their lack of achievement. Because I think growing up in a family where the parents have achieved so much, you're like, well, why can't, it's almost like he was right. You want to become the adult in a way. You don't want to always stay the kid. And especially coming from wealth, what's the excuse? You have an advantage. So I think Cynthia feels like, it's extra embarrassing maybe, because if you start from nothing, you have so much to like, you're almost like, well, I'm doing everything I can. Well, imagine you look to the person next to you and they have a massive advantage. Everyone's journeys are very different, obviously. And like, we don't have there's X amount that goes into the equation of success. but I think it weighs on her even more. And then on the kids, mainly the two older siblings, as like the house looms over them and they both haven't even gotten an ounce of the success. I think it's like expected. But anyway, I think Carey said it really wonderfully. But I think like I just think of this argument they have in a hallway. It's like in the middle of the movie, and the hallway Carey specifically is in is very vast. I think like it echoes, and I think when you're feeling down on yourself, well, you're crying in a mansion. How bad can it be? But it can be because the expectations are so different, and most likely people are like, you're going to be fine, but also how could you not be successful? You must suck because look at the bump you got, right? So I just think it's like it packs on everything in a way that is maybe just slightly different, you know?
It really does. And you had mentioned, like, particularly with the two older siblings, because the younger sibling, I think he's still in college, he's still in school, and so he there's still opportunity for him to find what his success is in life. But these older two, Cynthia, she's struggling with the book; it's not taking off the way she wanted, and Bryce, is kind of nebulous. We're not entirely sure what his situation is, right?
What do you
'Cause
think, Thomas? Do you think he's successful, or do you think he's faking it till he makes it?
I think he's faking it till he makes it. That's just my theory. Because I think that would just really compact this theme of success or lack of. And it's not that he needs to express how successful he is, but I don't know. I did it. I got the sense that like he's faking it till he makes it. He's trying to make it happen, but he also doesn't want to show his hand or show like where he's at in that process. So yeah. I don't know. Is that what you intended?
I can't say that.
Oh,
I'm slightly auteur over here. Well, I'll just say it this way: he's not very happy, but maybe he's never happy. I don't know. Like the youngest brother says, those two are always pissed. Those two older ones. So we don't know.
yes. Also something I love in a good movie is a little bit of ambiguity, a little bit of interpretation. That's awesome. So the rollout for this film, I want to talk about a little bit. So the Ehlers-Danlos Society has its limited screening at the time of this recording. It's tomorrow, and I think that that's such a cool opportunity to make this movie really accessible. I don't know who wants to start on talking about that, but like I think that that's a really cool thing to kind of discuss and bring awareness to.
I'll give it a baby kickstart.
Yeah, let's do that.
Basically, yeah. So we are basically going to launch the movie fully accessible and no paywall for 5 days. It's going to be on YouTube. We became partners with the Ehlers-Danlos Society because they were just such a huge fan of the film. Number one, especially Carey's performance in it. I think for them, they were just like, yeah, they really reacted to it, and we found that they were like just so we were found that they were the right partner in how they felt about the movie. A big thing that Cynthia, Carey's character in the film, is talks about. I think she says in the movie, I should know. I feel like I know the movie by heart. I've seen it so many times, but it's not disability. It's accessibility. That's like the issue. So we had always or wanted the film to be fully accessible in the screening, whether it would be at a festival or theatrically, or now it'll be online. So we're going to roll it out in two separate ways. One will have just a regular link, and then the other link will be with open audio description. And that was not done as an afterthought. The writer who does the audio description from Bridgerton did it, and it's fantastic. And if you don't know what audio description is, it's essentially for anybody of low vision or who's blind, basically it's like an audiobook. They're telling you what's happening on screen. The actress who reads the audio description, I don't know. I feel like it's just like a really exciting way to watch this movie. It's I just think it brings a whole new level to the film. The writing, we really put care into the writing and the performance of the audio description. So we are going to release it. So it will be fully accessible, and then captions, obviously, and they're not just like auto-generated. There are captions. They're available on both links. But yeah, we're going to roll it out for 5 days. We just want to put it in front of people. I think a really hard thing sometimes too with depends what festival. But a lot of the times, just even distribution for indie right now is in a tougher spot, especially if you don't have a massive festival premiere. And like another catch-22, most sales agents don't want to see it, or distributors, if you don't have that festival premiere. A lot of festivals want to know if you have sales agents or distribution attached. This is kind of a bypassing a gatekeepers kind of thing. We felt that the movie was like extremely strong, and we wanted to put it right into people's laps and see what the response would be. So really just kind of allowing the audience to be very large. When we had the Oscars, our movie got seen a lot, and that was because, one, it was everywhere, but we also did release it for free online. And that happened with another one of my shorts. We just had a really, really good success in that. So we just want to see what people think. We want to put it, some people may not be able to get to a festival in the middle of nowhere, or a certain theater, or whatever. Even streamers can be troublesome. So yeah, so we're going to do this partnership. We're really excited about it. They're doing a live with Carey and Instagram Live. Laura Bloom, who's the head of EDS, she's wonderful. They're going to do a live, which is probably, I'm more excited for that than the release. But yeah, so anyway, I got to stop. It's October 9th through the 13th. It's fully accessible. And that's in any way. And then basically it's just on the YouTube Black Phoebe Films channel. I'm sure Thomas will give you a link or something like that. But yeah, it'll be out for those 5 days. And I don't know, I'm kind of really interested to know like who people side with in this movie. I was kind of hoping there's a bit of controversy in there. It's not a very, I would say is it rated R? There's some words in there, right? There's a lot of F words, and then there's a lot of not woke words. Like one of the brothers, he's a little sassy, to be very polite. So I'm just interested to kind of see who people side with, because I think each character has a very different, it's not like, I don't think they're who you think they are at the beginning of the film. I think it changes quite a bit. So anyway, I rambled a bit. I'll let Carey put a button on it and maybe talk more about EDS, because Jerry, my producer, will kill me that I didn't.
Yeah, Carey, do you have anything you want to contribute to this part?
Yeah, just I love the idea of this. It's very special, and the Ehlers-Danlos Society. I've followed them for a long time, since my diagnosis, and they have wonderful resources, and they've done tremendous work in bringing about awareness to the condition. When I was first diagnosed, the way I've been able to see it, and this has been a lot of credit to them and a lot of credit to the community at large and social media presence. But when I was first diagnosed, I would go to doctors and specialists even, and they would Google the condition in the room. Like, people didn't know what it was. What it is a genetic connective tissue disorder that affects your collagen. So it connects your collagen runs through every organ in the body, and there are lots of different kinds of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. There's a whole range. There are kinds that affect your vascular system more. There are kinds that affect your skin more. The kind that I have is the hypermobile kind, which is the most common kind, but the kind that there's still not a genetic marker for. They're narrowing in on it. So you can't do genetic testing to find out if you have it. The way that you are diagnosed is through a clinical test. So you have a long assessment where you have to meet a bunch of clinical criteria to then be diagnosed with it. And the way I was diagnosed was also ruling out other connective tissue conditions that people might have heard of, like Marfan syndrome or Loeys-Dietz syndrome. So the way that it affects me, it's such a broad, people are affected in lots of different ways, and it looks no two people with Ehlers-Danlos are the same. But for me, I have hypermobile joints, which means that my joints dislocate or partially dislocate more commonly with me, which causes a lot of pain. And there's also then muscle pain associated with joints dislocating, because your muscles then overwork to keep everything kind of together. So the way that it looks for me is a lot of chronic pain. It's very painful to walk. So the way that I walk is adjusted to limit the amount of pain that I'm in. And I get very tired, very fatigued. And when I have used a wheelchair, it's to help with pain and fatigue. And that's the case for a lot of people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, is that a lot of people can walk. It's just very difficult or painful. It's also dynamic, like it can be worse during certain seasons. It can be worse during associated with other illnesses. It's a disability that changes a lot. So it looks very different from one day to the next. And that's not something that you see a lot represented in film or in television. But since I was diagnosed, in just the past 10, 12 years, it's something that a lot more people have heard of, especially within the disability community. And I go to doctors and they know what I'm talking about. So it's clear that work has been done to educate people and to educate doctors, and there is more support now. I see a physical therapist who is specifically works with people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. If you told me 10 years ago that that was a thing, I wouldn't have believed you. You know, it felt very lonely for a long time. It can also affect different organs. When I was a teenager, I had multiple collapsed lungs because of it, and I had a lung surgery that glued my lungs to the inside of my ribs. It affects the valves of my heart. It also causes a lot of digestive issues, which is very dangerous for a lot of people. It can be comorbid with gastroparesis, which there have been several prominent influencers in the past few years with Ehlers-Danlos, with the hypermobile type too, who have passed away because of gastroparesis complications and feeding tube complications. So the vascular form of Ehlers-Danlos is associated with high mortality, but the hypermobile type has comorbidities that can also be very dangerous. So it's important for people to get diagnosed and to seek medical care and to know what it is that they're dealing with. When I was first having my lung problems, doctors, I was also very thin, because that's often a feature, is a certain kind of body type. So doctors thought that I maybe was struggling with anorexia or bulimia, and didn't look into other causes. And they would monitor my food intake and output and that kind of thing. And I would tell them, this is not what I'm dealing with. There's something else going on, but they wouldn't listen to that. So a lot of people are misdiagnosed with other things, which just delays them making lifestyle changes that can make life easier or getting pain management. I probably shouldn't have gone to musical theater school and tried to dance as long as I did, although there are dancers with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. But for me in particular, I think that exacerbated my symptoms. So it's the kind of thing, like, knowledge is power, and they're really helping to make sure that people know what the symptoms are, can put the pieces together, and then can get the help that they need. So in terms of representation, you don't often see people who use wheelchairs and who walk. And again, that's a lot of our community. A lot of people with Ehlers-Danlos live that reality. So it's very cool that you see that in this film also. I think a lot of people will be excited to see themselves in that way. And it's education that's needed, because it's very confusing for the public to see someone in a wheelchair, or maybe stand up at the grocery store to reach something on a high shelf, and people get harassed because of it, just because it's something that they're not familiar with. But that's part of why representation is so important for any marginalized group, because we learn about the world through our stories and through film and TV. And if somebody sees a movie where someone uses a wheelchair and can walk, then maybe the next time they see somebody doing that out in the world, they won't think to yell at them. It does help change the world when you authentically represent people as they are in film and TV. So it's a partnership that makes total sense, and I hope that people with Ehlers-Danlos watch the movie and feel seen and represented and excited about it, and show it to their friends and can say, see, this is what I deal with. This is one version of what I deal with. So yeah, I'm all about
it's this is why movies are so important, is to be able to see life through someone else's perspective. Like we all don't have access to all these types of people, but we do have access to movies. And yes, it could be such an educational experience, and it's great to hear about this partnership with the Ehlers-Danlos Society, and that you guys are making this movie accessible. So that's awesome. I have one more question for each of you before we sign off here. Carey, I can't leave this conversation without hearing more about your performance and work with your co-stars, Amadeus Serafini, I mean, and Carson MacCormac. Tell me more about working with them, and of course, you guys have such passionate performances here. I want to hear more about that dynamic.
Oh, they were wonderful, and they're both such great actors. I mean, they showed up and knew how to play, and they both knew their characters so well. And we were talking last time, and Courtney and I have talked about how Amadeus came in very much in character, and it was fun to kind of get to poke at that character and try to break that wall a little bit, both on screen and off screen. And it ended up being a lot of fun. We had a lot of laughs. Carson and I got along so well, and kind of would team up against him in certain moments to make fun of him in a loving way, you know. And very quickly, I think we had a lot of fun playing with that dynamic. And just in life, both guys are so nice. Like, they're such great people, and we all are always happy to see each other again when we get to, and we're always going to be rooting for each other. And to be able to talk so much, to be on set together. I come from theater, where you get to spend so much time with people, and often in film or TV, you won't get to see certain people because they'll be in their trailer. Maybe you'll see each other in the green room, and then you can catch up really quick, or in actor holding. But people do have the ability to kind of disappear. And you hear stories of people never seeing their co-stars unless it's time to film. But we got lots of time to talk about the story and the characters, and to run lines, to work the scenes while people were setting up for things, and then just to get to know each other. So it was very easy to pretend to be siblings with those guys. They're the best.
I think that's the best way to go into a set, and to go with coworkers, is to really feel that authentically before getting on camera. So that's awesome.
For as wealthy as this film looks, we were actually all very poor. That's why we were all like in a big house, very close to each other.
Eating the best food. The catering was.
You're the second person to say that. I literally were doing behind the scenes commentaries. Well, I'm just gonna say this to Jerry's credit. Jerry and I both came up in camera. We both started as PAs and worked up, but we've all had to have been housed in one time or another with someone else and have a shared bathroom. And you know, on low budget movies, you can have crappy food. It just happens, right? You put the money into the movie, and then everything else is like second. But Jerry never came from that mentality. He's also from Europe, where the food is just genuinely better. So maybe this plays into it. But like Jerry, I think a lot of the budget went to putting up people properly. Everyone had their own bed, obviously their own bed, but their own bathroom. And then in Del Mar, no one would cater. It's not like LA. I think it took him like over like 2 months to find this caterer. And then he would like pre-approve all the menus. And it's funny, I didn't eat a lot. I was so stressed. I love the cookie. I would just like take a cookie and just disappear for like those 30 minutes. But it's Samantha also said that, who plays Gabby. I was doing a behind the scenes commentary. I was like, what's the one notable thing you guys took away from this film? She's like, I thought the catering was great. I was like, well, it wasn't the answer I was looking for, but like, I'll let Jerry know you said that. So thank you, Carey. I'll let Jerry know.
It was great.
It is so funny. If I ever make a movie, the thing that I will be most, I don't know, focused on is whether catering is good or not. Like I've heard this from multiple in different segments, like just different people. Like they really value good catering and good food when they're making a
I mean,
movie.
think about how long the days are. Think about
Yeah.
how many of the jobs are thankless. It's your 1:30 to 40, well, it's 45 minutes, 15 after last man, right? Like we
Mm,
would abide by that. But like
mhm,
imagine you go and it's crap food, or it's like you're gonna be weighed down for the next 6 hours. Like it's a nightmare. And everyone
mhm.
knows. Like I used to sometimes I was even on a union to bring my own food because I needed to have control over, like, especially when you're performing or, whatever. So I think it's just a good way, like people get pissed when the food is bad. Like you want to keep your crew happy, right? Because you need them.
Oh
Like
yeah.
don't treat
I
them like crap.
right. This is a lesson I've learned in interviews is that catering is important. It's a very important priority to have.
But if no one leaves with anything from this interview podcast, whatever, and this is that catering must be good. There's no excuse for shitty catering.
Catering must be good for sure. I want to get one more piece of advice from you, Courtney, before we take off. You've mentioned a couple times that you are Academy Award nominated, which is awesome. And I think we talked about that a little bit last time we chatted as
That's just
well.
going to be like etched on my grave if I don't ever. Like the house that looms over the characters. That
Yes.
nomination just looms over me. Like I can't. I guess it's great, but it's also like God. I feel like I need to one up it or something.
Yes. I mean, I would love to be Oscar nominated. Like that would be just a cool title to have. But it's interesting. I it is kind of a daunting title to have, and it does make you want to work a little bit
Don't
hard. But
I
I guess,
mean? Don't let me. I tote that shit around with me everywhere I go. Like,
of
don't let me
course.
fool you.
But I'm sure a lot of filmmakers aspire to this and are like chasing that Oscar. What would you say to them? What would be your advice now that you kind of have that experience in your history? What would you advise those filmmakers who are really like trying to get to that nomination?
This is gonna sound silly, but well, maybe it doesn't. It'll sound cliched. It'll sound very much like what I'm trying to believe in my own head is that you can't focus on the outcome. Like you have zero control over that. In fact, when we made that movie, it was a team of people. We tried to get PR. This is before, so back then. I mean, this is a while back, right? It's almost 10 years. You would submit back in the day 100 DVDs to the Academy once you qualified. And you have to qualify by winning an award at a Academy qualifying festival. You have to do what they call four-wall. I don't even know if you can do that anymore, but has to play in theaters. It used to have to get a print write-up in LA Weekly or another major publication. But we could not, we couldn't get, no one wanted to rep us. And we thought, well, maybe, we can get people to vote for us or whatever. And just, no. I didn't even know we got shortlisted. This is like how little control you have over it. I didn't even know we got shortlisted. Someone texted us congratulations because they saw it in a deadline release. There's no way of knowing like where your film's going to go. Even take case in point this one. If I would never have guessed in a bazillion years this is the way I would be releasing this film. So you have very little control over how people react, but you have a lot of control over what you put into it. I think that what I would say is if you're looking for an Oscar nomination, all you can do is put the absolute best thing you can into your piece. And I will say this, though, the Oscars have a type, right? Like there is a type of movie that does well at the Oscars. That can be very different. By the way, that doc that got nominated did not as good at festivals. It won at Austin Film Fest. But other than that, I think it had already been shortlisted. It didn't do well. The day I got nominated, I got rejected from like 3 festivals. So it's a very there's little control. What I will say is that if you ever get such an opportunity, so one, if you're trying to get to an Oscar, well, one, I think I'm a big honesty and filmmaking person. I put everything I had into that thing. I surrounded myself with the right people. Every movie is a startup, and you're only as strong as the people you surround yourself with. So it's a huge thing. Even if it's yourself, right? Doesn't matter. It's like, then it's on you. You just make the movie you can make. How it's received, not up to you. I will say, though, the piece of advice I can give is that when that door opens, it's funny, IndieWire, I just did an article about this for them, is like, That's me plugging myself, by the way. But what it is that when that door opens, you better have things to push, and they have to align with your box at first. At least that was my experience. I didn't have new projects to push through. Like if I would have had a feature doc ready to like, hey, I want to make this, I probably could have gotten it funded, but I didn't. I was like, I'm done with shorts. I want to do this. I'm going to do this. And it was very difficult. You have to have that next thing. The opportunity like that will open the door for you. But if you don't have something to push, like the door is going to open, but if you don't have stuff to wedge through it, it's going to slowly close. And I think it was an amazing experience, but it did more, I think, for the way other people see me than the way I saw myself, because you get excited and you think it's all good. I said this earlier, like you think it's going to all happen. But if you really got like recognition gets you in the door, but yeah, you have to have all your content. You better be ready, and you've got to be tough, because having such like a success like that is so like champagne and cotton candy that you're just like, this is amazing. I want to stay in this world forever because it's so comfy. But I think the thing is that if you buy into it too, you almost allow the box to be shaped around you. Does that make sense? I'm kind of convoluted here, but I guess two things, like you make the work you can make. There's not a lot that you can do other than make the best film you can make, as cheesy as that sounds. But I don't think any amount of PR will get you somewhere closer. I honestly, sadly think celebrity will get you closer, whether it's a celebrity EP or celebrity. I have to say, we live in that world now. It wasn't 10 years ago, but now it's that. And then when the opportunities come, have your next things lined up. I think it's extremely important. And if you don't, then take that time to find out who you are as a filmmaker. It happened to me really young, so I don't think I was like ready. It was like, I didn't expect it, you know? So anyway, so it's a fun thing, but remember the Oscars happen every year, and it's not going to fill your cup forever. It's super fun. You get a lot of good stuff, but you're also reminded very quickly that you're just a short, and you're not. Leonardo DiCaprio won an Oscar that year. Do you think at the Oscars luncheon, anyone's like, there's some people that talk to you. Everyone's trying to talk to Leo, you know, it's all in context. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I've become an even bigger believer in like, make your work and get it seen. Don't let people hold you back. Don't let people tell you what platform to do it on. Getting your work seen is like the absolute most important thing, because if people do not see your work, you'll never even, who knows, that next someone might see your short that's on YouTube, and then you get the opportunity to do the thing that leads you to the Oscar, you know? So just get seen. That's like, don't let people tell you because you didn't get into this festival that your work is not good enough. Festivals have changed. They've changed a lot. So you got to look at all these amazing new methods of like viewership. Viewership can get you places, and you never know who's going to see your stuff. So you just have to have a lot of, I think, courage and stamina in this industry. Like regardless of what you do, I mean, God only knows acting, but any other thing, you just got to be tough. If you're not tough and this is not the only thing you could do, go do everything. Go do the other things. And I mean that because I think even at my stage, I question sometimes like, oh, what does this mean? Blah, blah, blah. You just have to be tough, and you have to like really believe in what you do. Make those films. I genuinely believe, everyone always says like, eventually you'll get seen or something. It'll happen if you hang in there long enough. So I don't know, just stamina, and make the best film you can make, whatever that means to you.
I love that advice. I think that's so insightful, and I mean, it might sound cheesy when you say it, but there's so much reality to that, and I hope that people internalize that, and you know, continue making the best work that they can, and you know, keep just trying to get that exposure. It's very important. Yeah. So. My goodness, Courtney, Carey, thank you guys so much for this conversation. This was, as was last time, wonderful to talk with you both. And I hope to do this again sometime soon. So whenever you guys have more projects coming up, I'll be following your careers, of course.
Thank you so much.
We'll do this again, all right?